Welcome back to the United Pubcast for your Friday night pint in what is a very sort of poignant week for Manchester United, obviously on the eve of the 65th anniversary of Munich. So a big week for Manchester United ahead of the Crystal Palace match. Obviously a minute silence and the ceremonies around Old Trafford. So obviously a very important and very emotional week for Manchester United. And obviously the return of Premier League football. We're just discussing that. Our last Premier League match was against Arsenal, which feels an absolute age ago. So it will be great to get sort of back into the swing of things. And I did enjoy the cup football, but the bread and butter is Premier League football. So we'll discuss that all in a little bit. But Larry, there's no hiding from the fact there is an elephant in the room in regards to the news surrounding Mason Greenwood coming out. Now, I made the mistake. I know when I go to bed, the worst thing I can do when I wake up in the morning, early in the morning, when the dog's pushing me to take him out to the toilet, the worst thing I can do is open my phone and go on Twitter. I know I shouldn't do it, but I do it. So at 3 in the morning, I get back to bed, have a quick scroll through Twitter. I was maybe out of it thinking it was still the January transfer window. Let's see if we're signing anyone. I'll wake up, scroll through the phone, and obviously see the news breaking around Mason Greenwood. And do you think I got an ounce of sleep in the next couple of hours before work? Not a chance. Big news. So, look, we'll share our opinion because now this is out, and he's technically a free man. So this is now, I don't know what you'd call it, but sort of open to the court of sort of public opinion. We haven't been able to discuss this over the last the last year or so, but now it is out there. We can sort of express our opinions. Now we will keep it respectful and we'll look at the facts or what we do know. I don't think it's good to speculate on certain things. And obviously in the live chat, please sort of be aware of the emotive nature of the subject and the sensitivity around it. But we will discuss the facts from Manchester United side of things and Mason Greenwood side of things. But Larry, to start off with, we'll wake up first thing in the morning and I didn't expect to see Mason Greenwood trending, but he was. All charges have been dropped.
Look, it's big news. We'll get into what it could potentially mean and the title of the video. What's next? We'll get into all of that. Just on the news itself, shock. And out of the blue. Obviously, I think it was in November. They mentioned his court case was scheduled to take place in 12 months. Yeah. Now, you would have thought that, we'll get into what this might mean for his career, but I mean, he now hasn't played football for 12 months. So, I mean, that's factual. Now, in terms of where his career goes, we'll get into that. But with 12 months, considering his age, he's 21 years of age, physically, whether he'd be capable of recovering, you'd say probably. We don't know what sort of training he's undertaken, if any. If the court case had gone ahead, we would have been talking about 2 years out of the game at the top level. I think in any case, his career would have been done. So massive news. And I guess the first thing that came to my mind, Tom, how does Manchester United handle this? And I guess that's one of many questions that then come out of this. While the case might be closed, there are still so many questions.
I think that's where it is in terms of the evidence. The only evidence we have is what we saw on social media over a year ago in regards to those and how those sort of images and voice notes hold up in court. That's for the lawyers and the judges to decide on sort of the weight of those. We can form opinions of them, and that we're right to do that. But it is so hard without the facts. Mason Greenwood and his ex-partner or partner, I'm not sure the current situation, Harry Robson, they're the two people who know what happened. We don't know. It's very hard to speculate, especially on such a sensitive topic. My gut feeling now, in terms of when I first saw it and sort of everything that's come out, my gut feeling, unfortunately, I feel this act has occurred or some type of act like this has occurred. And for that matter, look, I might be wrong, but that is my opinion of what has happened. If that is the case, I don't think he should play for Manchester United again. But let's say a hypothetical situation, he's completely innocent. Now, I know technically in the court of law, he's an innocent man now. He has no case to answer for. He goes back to Manchester United as an employee. He has a contract there. So I know in the eyes of the law, he's innocent. Innocent until proven guilty. He wasn't proven guilty. So I understand that. Now, that doesn't mean technically he didn't do it. That is where sort of that grey area does lie. But I want to paint a hypothetical situation that he is innocent. He didn't commit the act. Man United, I still don't think can touch him. I don't think that benefits Manchester United. Now, we can sit here and say that's not fair if he is innocent. Okay, he should be afforded the right to be sort of reinstated into his profession, and I fully understand that, but life is not fair. Many people miss out on a career for certain reasons, and I just think even if he was 100% innocent, Manchester United, I don't think can touch him. Just in regards to that, you thought Ronaldo was a distraction. Could you imagine Mason Greenwood going to an away ground, or even Old Trafford, to be fair? Could you imagine every question, every media press conference Eric Ten Hag having to deal with? And I just think, look, just your opinion on that, just a hypothetical situation, how he does come back or potentially could come back.
All right. I'm going to put my emotion to the side. Let me just dissect your comments. All right. So you're saying even if he's innocent, he shouldn't play for Manchester United.
I don't think it benefits Manchester United. I don't think it helps us having that cloud over it, because perception is reality. You think Liverpool or Ellen Road or Chelsea are going to sort of give Mason Greenwood a warm reception back onto the pitch? No, perception is reality. The evidence that we have, the public has, that calls him guilty. But now, I don't know if he's guilty or innocent. That's a debate for another day. But perception is reality. And in the public eye, he is guilty.
All right. I'll touch on 2 points here. And the final 2 points I'll make on this matter because at the end of the day, there was still a victim. Now, I don't know what involvement Mason Greenwood had in that. I don't think any of us know other than Harriet Robson and Mason Greenwood. They're the only two people in this world who know what's actually happened. So with that being said, let's look at the two hypotheticals that you're alluding to. Case number one, he may have done something. In the eyes of the court, in the eyes of the law, he's innocent. What should happen? If you, Tom, you're a school teacher, correct?
Oh, teacher, borderline. I work in school. I'll tell everyone I'm a teacher. Yeah.
You're one of the grown-up students that smokes and the kids like to hang out with you. Granted. All right. If this court case and this matter, and I know you would never, let's assume you were charged of something similar. Would it then be fair if you were acquitted of all charges for you to lose your job? Now, let me give you a bit more. I'm a HR professional. I work in employment law, and I deal with employment law all the time. I deal with Fair Work Commission all the time. Let me tell you, if you file for unfair dismissal, you will absolutely win.
Life is not fair. Win. This is about Manchester United and moving forward. Now, that would not be fair on Mason Greenwood. You could say that 100%, but Ben Thornley's injury wasn't fair on him.
No, but this is the problem I have with this matter, right? Because the evidence isn't there, I think there is only one scenario where Mason Greenwood could play for Manchester United again. And that one scenario is he needs to make a statement, and that statement needs to be, I did not lay my hands on a woman. He has to outright say that. It will do him no good to stay silent and run onto any football pitch for any football team. He cannot stay silent on this. He will not be accepted. He needs to come out and he needs to adamantly deny the allegation. That's point number one. Point number two, does this squad of players take him back? I think that's also a big point. I think when this all broke, a lot of players unfollowed him. Most popular name that I can think of, Bruno Fernandes, the current captain. Unfollowed Mason Greenwood, followed by David De Gea and a number of other players. Whether these players would take him back is another question. But Tom, let's bring it closer to home. I support the Bulldogs in rugby league. In 2004, a large portion of that squad were accused of sexual assault. They played throughout the season. None of them were stood down. They all played. They all got acquitted of charges. A player fairly recently, St. George Dragons, Jack de Belin, he didn't play NRL football for 2 years because the club and the NRL had a new policy. He was stood down until the court case was resolved. The second the charges were dropped, he was allowed to come back and play. If we follow every instance in world sport, the second a player has been acquitted, they have been allowed to return to their sporting club. How can Manchester United set a precedent that is any different to that?
This is not, I'm not talking about in regards to the right thing to do legally, in regards to, that's for the Manchester United lawyers and Mason Greenwood's legal team to decide. That goes way over my pay grade. I'm saying I've heard the tape in terms of that voice note. That was Mason Greenwood, 100% that was Mason Greenwood. Now, maybe his lawyer sort of painted a different picture around what we heard, but ultimately I don't think a player in a dressing room can unhear that. I think maybe one or two people have alluded to that in the comments as well. So in regards to the players taking him back, I'm not sure. And ultimately, you're right in regards to sort of unfair dismissal and the right to sort of prove your innocence and come back and sort of have a career in whatever profession. But ultimately, I go back to, that's for the lawyers, that's for the legal team, that's for that side of things. In regards to reality and the life we do live in, the media, rival fans, Manchester United fans, it's a different kettle of fish. We don't talk about the legalities of it. Perception is reality. And we saw what we saw and we heard what we heard. Now, in terms of factual behind the scenes, only two people know what actually happened. Okay, but perception is reality, and ultimately he puts a Manchester United shirt on. He walks out there. The media and every single fan around the country calls him guilty. I don't think that helped. I know this doesn't help Manchester United and Erik ten Hag. So you can say in a world where he's innocent, he comes back, that's not fair. Okay, but life isn't fair. And Manchester United need to move on. We look at a Munich week in terms of Jimmy Murphy all those years ago saying how we'll be viewed in the future will be acted on how we behave today. Manchester United have a huge decision to make now, and I think it has to be the right one, fair or not. I do not see a situation where it helps Manchester United to have Mason Greenwood part of the squad. Now, ultimately, that is the decision which is made, which I think that will be Manchester United's desire. How they go about that, Larry, I have no idea. No idea.
Can I ask you a final question on this? Because I do kind of want to move on. We've got football to talk about, but I do have one final question to ask you. And Tom, and this is just an open discussion. Like, I want to make it clear to anyone in the comments. This isn't Larry versus Tom. This isn't.
We've had all these opinions bottled up for a year. We haven't been able to sort of
exactly, and we're just kind of letting it out. And you know, both of us, obviously, you know, I've got a sister who I love and would protect with everything I have. My mum, you know what I mean? Like, I would never support violence against women. Like, it's just there's no place for it in society, and I think both of us, of course, we agree on that. But I think where this gets grey, let me ask you this. There have been players, now granted, violence against women or criminal offences or any sort of criminal offence. When you are talented, there is no denying that clubs have been willing to cast a blind eye. Let's not forget what Roy Keane was accused of in the lead up to the FA Cup final treble. Yeah. So if we're staying on that sort of mindset, Mason Greenwood, in terms of the player, before he went, if someone said to me he has the potential to be one of the best players in the world, I wouldn't argue with you. In fact, I don't think many people would. In terms of natural ability, he had it all. The way people are talking about Saka at Arsenal, Mason was far past what Saka was 12 months ago. So let me ask you this then. You say he walks out at Old Trafford, there'd be an absolutely very weird, unconventional reaction.
I think it would be a bad one. I think it would be toxic, and I think rightly so.
But, and I hate to make this point, football fans are fickle. He scores 30 goals 6 months later.
But that's what I don't think.
Is the reaction the same? I don't think it is.
But I don't think it's Mason Greenwood of 2 years ago. I think what has happened, that the pressure on him in terms of the media attention, the fans, I don't think he's in a position where he will perform at a rate to perform like that. I just don't see that. He hasn't played for a year. Who knows how he is going to deal with this? I don't think any player would deal with it well. And that is where I go back from a selfish point of view, looking at it from Manchester United's point of view. You've got to. It's not going to help Manchester United. I don't. Show me one good reason Man United can sort of come out this in a positive PR light.
Yeah, look, it's a difficult one. The only point I just want to make on Mason Greenwood himself is, you know, he's a human being as well. And look, obviously, I don't know whether he's innocent or guilty or not. Like we said, we don't know the details. I just hope whatever happens, the club also give him support. You know, if they decide to part ways, you know, I think us as fans wouldn't debate that. But I hope Mason is also looked after, just in terms of his own welfare, his own education, in terms of, you know, again, without knowing the details. I hope there is at least a human element with him as well. I don't want to see him treated. You know what I'm trying to say. I don't want to see.
It's a hard situation.
To manage this well. I mean, if they decide to end his contract, that's still his career absolutely impacted. And you know, maybe that's the right thing. If he's done that, then, you know, if you believe in karma or whatever it might be. See, Imad's made the point. He's not the victim here. And you know what? Some people have that opinion, Tom. If you go on Twitter, it's fairly mixed. Some people say, you know what, Mason Greenwood should be welcomed back. He's now been proven.
It's where we need more information, because he doesn't have a case to answer for and he's innocent in the court of law. that doesn't actually mean that the
Yeah.
act hasn't happened. So it's a hard situation. We need more information. Whether we're going to get that, I'm not sure how this will unfold in the future.
You see, like
Fingers
Scott's
crossed.
comment, right? Like I see what Scott's saying. Scott, no one disagrees with you, mate. Don't hit women. 100% agree with you. We don't have evidence either way, and this is the gray area. This is the very.
But it's not a grey area in moving forward in reality. Like we can talk about legalities and what it means in a court of law. In the perception is reality, and in public eye, we saw what we saw, and that's guilty. Now, yes, in the court of law, his lawyers could probably say he wasn't there, but ultimately, he walks on with a red shirt. He's guilty of what he did, or of what he was accused of, and ultimately, that doesn't help Manchester United. And my hunch, in regards to, I can't unhear that voice note. I can't unhear that. My hunch is some act has occurred, and ultimately that is the case. I don't want to see him play for Manchester United again. If more information comes to light and he's proven innocent, that's a tricky spot where you do have to show him the 100% support and welcome him back and sort of let him be reinstated in the society in whatever profession he chooses. But ultimately, it is such a hard subject. I do appreciate everyone in the live chat. Apologies not bringing everyone's comment up.
It's a mix of reactions, isn't it? It's so interesting. See, look, there's a mix. I'm seeing a mix. Like if you look at the people who, I've seen a lot of these.
I think that this is where it's hard not to look. I love Matt, but he brings a point up here defending the guy who got found not guilty. He's not found not guilty. The case was dropped. Okay, so yes, in reality, you can say that's innocent or not guilty. It does not mean the act hasn't occurred. Okay, just what a court of law finds. I have no faith in any judicial system around the world, so I'm not going to say. Like, I've played at Sheffield United when Chet Evans was there. Okay, he ended up going to jail for his very serious accusations. He spent a few years in prison, unfortunately, then got sort of released on further information. So we do need further information. But look, it is a tricky subject. And ultimately, Larry, we're going to be going over 15 minutes. And it is highly emotive. And look, fingers crossed for both Mason Greenwood's point of view, Harry Robson's point of view, this can get some type of speedy recovery because it has been going for far too long. And look, just anyone in that position can get the help they need, whatever side of the fence it is.
Absolutely. And look, if you're asking for my hunch is he doesn't play for United again.
Same.
And I suppose we'll see. Look, there's so much more of this to come, and I think it will come. So let's see. But Tom, with all that being said, let's talk about this.
I have been waiting for this. I didn't want to get it throughout that chat. I want to stay sober, but it is Friday night pint, so we'll crack open a beer.
I'm going to drink water because it has been an absolute scorcher of a day, and I just need to hydrate because if I drink beer right now, I'm going to be the most inappropriate person you've ever seen on YouTube. So I don't want to do that.
Friday night pint. Manchester United, Crystal Palace. We have a new Austrian we've all fallen in love with. And Larry, I'm just going to fly straight into it. Might as well. Crystal Palace, Man United. I'm starting SABITZER. Here's my team. I'm throwing him in for Fred. Agree or disagree?
Wow, Tom, I love it.
I just think we have leads during the week, and I just think in terms of the way that game plays, a little bit of energy, give Fred a rest on the weekend, maybe Fred against Leeds. Against Crystal Palace, I assume we're going to dominate the ball, and it's almost a straight swap. SABITZER in for Eriksen. If it was home and Eriksen was fit, Eriksen would play there. So I just think like for like, throw him in.
Look, I'll come to my 11. I like it, though. I like what you're doing. I like SABITZER. I like the look of him. I liked him when he was at Leipzig. I'm a massive fan of this signing. In terms of how would we describe what his role would be in the team? And Tom, can I ask you this, actually? I want to, just looking at your team, right? Bruno Fernandes. I don't think, we haven't spoken about Bruno much this season. He's kind of just blended in. But it should be noted that Bruno has really upped his game in the last month, I think. He definitely looks sharp again. The amount of outside foot passes the other night. I don't know what Bruno got up to.
I think that comes with confidence. I think when a player is confident and the manager has trust in them, he's sort of getting results. I think that is when you do see those passes come off. I think if that was happening at the end of last season, they'll be going out for a throw-in or setting a counter-attack up for the other team. But I think he's feeling confident. And ultimately, it's a discussion for another day, but you and I have sort of not butted heads. We've agreed and disagreed at times in regards to the topic. But Bruno Fernandes as captain, very interesting topic now in regards to maybe that has changed the way he plays because maybe he's not having the visible impact in regards to how we're sort of watching sort of games. He doesn't have 2 assists and 3 goals this week. Okay, so he's not performing as well. But ultimately, in regards to what Eric Ten Hag wants, is performing a lot more. I said to Rob the other day, a lot more of a sort of mature performance and sort of just doing the right things. Now, ultimately, fans wanted something a little bit more visible, something a little bit more exciting. But you're right in regards to Bruno Fernandes. He's plodding along very nicely. And my question to you would be, do you think, and I've been critical of him with the captain's armband over the last, since he's arrived in terms of his suitability, but ultimately now it looks like potentially Ten Hag has had a word to him and he's taken the captaincy quite well.
Yeah, look, I said it at the time, and I know Bruno does split opinion in the fan base. But at the time, look, Bruno's my guy, man. When he was given the armband, I supported it. I think he's a naturally made captain, and I got to be honest, I think the petulance has cut right out since he's been given the armband. If you think of the dive, I think it was last season, he took the dive for the penalty and that kind of thing. I'm not seeing any of that. He gets in the face of the referee, but I think he's keeping it at a good level now. He's not going over the top, and I think he's taken the responsibility. And maybe he's grown into the armband, but look, I got to be honest, and I don't want to criticize Maguire too much, but you can kind of see the difference. When Maguire was given the armband, there was massive question marks. And he played really well for a period of time, Maguire. But I think at the end of the day, you always show your level. I think Bruno, though, has really found... He's grown into the armband. I think he's a natural captain. And all the debate and all the congestion that was there at the start of the season, it's gone away, hasn't it? It's amazing what happens when you're winning games and you're playing well. Who's questioning Bruno as captain now?
No, well, winning solves everything. If we lose 1-0 to Palace and Bruno Fernandes misplaces a pass, we'll all be on his case, and that is the life of a fan. But I'll bring your team up here. The only change is SABITZER. You haven't started him, but you've gone SABITZER on the bench, but you've also agreed with me with going Martial. I have a feeling maybe in regards to a prediction, it would be potentially Weghorst and maybe another sort of half hour for Martial. That would be the prediction. But I do agree in terms of what I'd like to see. Maybe Martial for the first 60, then Weghorst for the last 30.
You know what's really interesting? We've both gone Rashford, Martial, Sancho. So let me ask you then, why have you opted to leave Anthony out?
I just think, how I've included SABITZER, I just think in regards to Jadon Sancho, he can come in and it's a game I think we will dominate. I think we can create. You could very much see what Eric Ten Hag has done recently, Bruno Fernandes going to the right and Sancho getting involved in the middle. And I think it would be a game where Jadon Sancho at home, it's not away at Crystal Palace, at home, we can get on the ball, we can start to dominate. And I just feel we have tough games in the next couple of weeks in regards to we're going to have to be high energy, high press against Leeds. So that's where I look at maybe Anthony has a little bit more energy. Fred maybe has a little bit more energy than, well, he's almost his perfect game along with Scott McTominay against Leeds in terms of the way they play. So I just look at in regards to putting a team out against Crystal Palace that is competitive, but also with an eye to the needs that we are going to need during the week.
Yeah, no, that's a really valid point. I think against Palace at home, you do expect United to be in the ascendancy, and it won't be an easy game. We saw that a few weeks ago. But I like the team. Look, the reason I've gone Fred is because I think he's playing really well. And if Ten Hag has shown anything, when you do play well, he doesn't drop you. So for that reason, I think he'll go with the all-Brazilian midfield. In saying that, if the new Austrian is going to start, no complaints from me. But we'll wait and see. I think... Yeah, it is interesting. When is the Leeds game? Is that midweek?
They've got midweek and then the weekend. It's back-to-back. Back-to-back, I believe. In regards to I think the midweek game is a catch-up from, I think, when the Queen passed away. I think it was one of those games that was postponed.
Yeah,
so that'll be eventful, those two games. I think the midweek is at Old Trafford, and I think the weekend is away at Ellen Road. So I'm definitely huge games there. My next point, Sully, you read my mind. I'm not sure if it's been spoken about yet, but Varane retiring from international football is music to my ears, fully committed to my cause. Literally my next point here, just in regards to, we're discussing the front end of the pitch, but going back to that final third or the back third there, in regards to Rafael Varane, we've always talked about it, whether with our English players or like Paul Scholes or Nemanja Vidic. I remember there was a big sort of story when he retired from international football, or that Sir Alex Ferguson tried to get him to retire from international football, etc. Ultimately, Rafael Varane has come out, publicly stated he's retired from French football, or international, I should say. Ultimately, look, from a Manchester United point of view, fantastic, absolutely brilliant in terms of his injury record and sort of how we watch France in terms of the way he runs. I think all of us in that World Cup final were just watching like this every time he sort of picked up a bit of a sprint, thinking he was going to do a hamstring. So brilliant for Manchester United. But ultimately, from a personal level, Rafael Varane, a lot of people have criticised and say, oh, he's too young to retire from international football. He's taken the easy way out. Ultimately, I look at what he's achieved. He should have retired after he won the World Cup, in my opinion. If you win the World Cup, you should retire from football, in my opinion. You have completed it. So ultimately, your thoughts in regards to Rafael Varane, sort of, do you think it's just a personal thing in regards to getting the most out of his career, or do you think it's a Manchester United thing in terms of really trying to sort of prolong something at Manchester United?
I think it's his body, to be honest. I love Rafael Varane as a player. Delighted he's at Manchester United, but he's had an injury-ravaged career. You can't deny that. And while he's managed to get 40 to 50 games in, availability is the best ability you can possibly have. And I think now he's just about to turn 30, Rafael Varane. So does he have anything left to prove on the international level? I don't think so. Like you said, he's won the World Cup, which is the ultimate achievement in international football. Ultimately, Manchester United will benefit, but his legacy now as a player, it's all about what he achieves in his club career. I don't think winning another World Cup, winning another Euros does anything for his legacy. I think it's now about, can he be part of that group of players that delivers Manchester United their first Premier League in a decade? And I think that does a lot more for his legacy than winning anything with France does. And look, as a United fan, absolutely delighted. If he's playing less football, less burnout, he should hopefully stay fit.
Yeah, definitely. If you are happy Rafael Varane has put Man United above France, please do leave a like on the video. Now, before we sort of go on to, as I said, it's the Friday Night Pint, so we'll finish with a bit of sort of general Premier League talk and a look around the grounds before we do wrap up. But on this match, in regards to, we are pretty much sort of identical starting 11s in regards to this one change with Fred and SABITZER. Diogo Dalot is back in training, reportedly. I heard Bruno Fernandes do an interview say he's back in training. Now, does that mean he's got to be available? Probably not. Erik ten Hag will have a press conference in a few hours, I think, or maybe the embargoed section will come out from midweek. So ultimately, is there anything on this match you want to discuss before we move on?
I just want to see a good performance. And crucially, Tom, it's that new player feeling. I can't help it. No, it's SABITZER though. It's actually with Sancho. I really want to see Sancho start, and I want to see him have a really positive impact. You know what Sancho looks like the other day? You know how Rashford at the start of the season looked physically sharp, but mentally not quite there? He was getting himself into good positions, bursting onto the ball. But I think of the first game of the season, Rashford had a good opportunity to take a shot first time, took a touch. By the time he goes to shoot, the defender gets to him. Sancho looks like that at the moment. Looks physically a lot sharper, but mentally still needs the confidence to be built on. I see a lot of benefit in getting Sancho to start a run of games and seeing what he can do. Because I think in terms of ability, I think what Sancho can give United in the run-in will probably outdo anything that Antony can give. And that's not to discredit Antony, but I think because it's his first season in the Premier League, first season in another country, they're kind of going on similar journeys, Antony and Sancho. It's quite almost identical. Sancho, while being English, never played in the Premier League before last season. So I think Sancho's the one where I think if Ten Hag can get a tune out of him, maybe we won't be as reliant on Rashford as well. So I'd be going really hard to get the Englishman playing some good football.
Yeah, no, hard to argue with that. Yeah, obviously, I assume very confident of the 3 points.
I don't know. Palace, they're the banana peel skin for Manchester United. They have been for a very long time. I'm quietly confident, but a draw wouldn't surprise me, and I hate to say that. But
usually I feel like that. Whenever we have Palace, usually I'm like that. But this one, I don't know. I am confident. But just before we sort of move on to the Premier League action around the grounds, Ed brings up a point here. February's going to be tough. 8 games this month. Past the second leg before the cup final. I'm worried. Erik ten Hag's sitting there now in regards to, he sees all those fixtures ahead. He sees the League Cup final at the end of the month, and he sees Newcastle's build up to that final, having 8 days off. Obviously, Erik ten Hag, and rightly so, will come out in press conferences and also believe as well, okay, the next game is the most important. I can only play the next game. I can only win that. Where is the importance in this next month? Is it getting through Barcelona in the Europa League? Is it the Premier League and securing that top 4 spot? Is it ultimately preparing ourselves for 90 minutes against Newcastle at the end of the month? I'm just thinking, where is the importance? If priority was laid somewhere, where is it this month?
Look, Barcelona, because it's Barcelona, we have to give that match respect. And I think it's ultimate. We're talking. Look, I know every fan will tell you their club is the biggest in the world. You know what's not a debate for me? Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United. 3 biggest clubs in the world. No debate. You can debate which order. Absolutely. 3 biggest clubs in the world. And for that reason, United have to put a strong line up there. It's Barcelona. Okay? The world's eyes will be on that fixture. Don't worry about the Champions League. I guarantee that in terms of ratings, this game will have bigger numbers, right? You've got to beat Barcelona. But with that being said, the Premier League for me is the bread and butter. I think United need to have as high, they need to have as high a finish to the end of this season as they can possibly do. It has to be the league for me. But let me ask the question back to you, Tom. If you're Ten Hag, how are you prioritizing February?
Trophy. Prepare us for Newcastle. I haven't looked at the Barcelona, and I agree in terms of you have to go full strength against Barcelona. It's European competition, whatever you think of the Europa League, it's a massive game for both Barcelona and Manchester. And of course, you have to go and try and win that like any other game. But ultimately, when the draw was made with Barcelona, I thought, if we turn up, we'll beat them. Ultimately, now you sort of take a step back. Look, they're leading La Liga. Okay, yes, they got knocked out of the Champions League. They got knocked out for a reason because they weren't good enough. But ultimately, if the Champions League was to start tomorrow, they would be in it. They're beating teams like Real Madrid. So ultimately, I look at it and think, okay, Man United having a good season, Barcelona having a very good season. Now, ultimately, you weigh up those two squads. At the moment, I do have confidence in us getting a result and beating Barcelona. But any other day of the week, Barcelona could really rock up and wipe the floor with Manchester United. They look very good. In regards, I watched, I forget who they played against the other day, but Sergio Busquets and Frankie de Jong in the midfield. It was a pleasure to watch. They were just toying with the opposition. And ultimately, if they turn up, they're going to be very tough to beat. So ultimately, it's a tough situation for Eric Ten Hag, but my desire for a trophy this month is just on a different level compared to 3 points or qualification for the round of 16.
You know what's really interesting about Manchester United, Tom? How old were you when you started supporting Manchester United? 3, 4, 5, 8?
First memory was when I was 6 in terms of watching United, but before that would have been 4 or 5. The first sort of introductions.
I do have a point to this. So 8 years old, Tom Simpson watching Manchester United. Every time we've been in Europe, I find it so interesting. United have never been a side to dominate possession, have we? I mean, it's always like in terms of European football, it's one of, you know what game always stays with me? The Barcelona-Manchester United final in 2011. It was a 3-1 loss, but honestly, it felt like a 10-1 loss. Like
33-1.
It honestly could have. And it was just one of those games like Barcelona, for whatever reason, and we've seen it with Manchester City in more recent times, those sides who play that, what you would call continental football, just United, for whatever reason, it doesn't blend. I'll be really interested to see United's evolution under Ten Hag because if United are dominating as a possession-based side, I'm going to love it, but I'm going to be so confused.
Yeah, no, I've always had that. Even under our pomp under Sir Alex Ferguson, just that style of football. Even when I played that style of football, even if we were the better team on top of the league, winning leagues, there would always be a team around 3rd or 4th who used to play great football who you couldn't get near. Now, ultimately, you'd maybe get better results over the season. For some teams, it's sort of that kryptonite. To some teams, and English teams, and especially Manchester United, have struggled. And as I said, I watched Frankie de Jong and Sergio Busquets. Obviously, I'll take Sergio Busquets at Man United, and Eric Ten Hag would obviously take Frankie de Jong. Well, no secret about that. So I'm going to be tough tie against Barcelona at the end of the month. But ultimately, if I was away up those 2 games, it's hard. It's impossible. You have to go full strength against Barcelona, but I also need the team prepared to be able to be at full strength against Newcastle. Yeah,
I think getting the League Cup is massive. I just think the damage that it could do if United lost that game it does worry me because I think this playing group, while they're confident, I just wonder if they lost the final, how do they recover? I think winning that game against Newcastle is an absolute priority for Ten Hag.
Yeah, definitely. Just on that Barcelona match, before we do move on to the Premier League stuff, George here, I'm not even angry about that 2011 final. We came up against arguably the best ever football team ever, and I tend to agree in regards to what that Barcelona team did for those 2 or 3 years in terms of playing football. Look, I did love sort of Beckham and Ryan Giggs bombing down the wing and sort of crossing balls in. That's my favourite type of football. but the quality and the level of intensity Barcelona played with was special. Ultimately, they were the best team. I still remember that press conference after the 2011 final. One of the journalists asked Alex if you could pick one player out of the Barcelona team, you had an open checkbook, who would you pick? And obviously, who could you pick? He could have said, that's the stupidest question I've ever heard. You had Lionel Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, and he obviously gave a very good answer to saying, I'll take Mascherano. But Ed here is also saying, I remember after that game, it was the first time I questioned whether it was time for Fergie to retire. To be fair, I was questioning to retire back in about 2004, but then he proved me wrong. He turned things around in terms of a very impressive rebuild. But look, Ferguson was up against Pep Guardiola, and Pep Guardiola did achieve greatness with that Barcelona team. So fair play to him. But we'll move on. If you're enjoying the chat, please do leave a like on the video. There is a lot in the chat, so I do appreciate all the interactions. Apologies if I don't get to your comments, but do very, very much appreciate it. If you are new, click that subscribe button and leave a like on the video. Now, Larry, Premier League action. In less than 12 hours' time, Chelsea play Fulham. Now, Fulham beat them a couple of weeks ago. Chelsea will spend a lot of money now. Now, I think we've all seen these graphs in regards to the money Chelsea has spent on all these players. Now, I think the one that is doing the rounds the most in terms of has all these players, it looks like there's 30 players on the list. It doesn't have two of the players. Enzo Fernandez, I don't know if he's available. Tell me in the live chat, is Enzo Fernandez available? Because I'll definitely be keeping an eye on his performance first thing tomorrow morning. But also, Romelu Lukaku is a Chelsea player. They can't score goals. They need a striker. Romelu Lukaku is still their £100 million man. And I'm just thinking he has to be thrown back into that list in terms of the money spent. So, Chelsea, Fulham, talk to me.
So interesting. What is it about us football fans? You know, when we see a club spend money the way Chelsea have, you can't help but want them to fall and fail, right? I mean, you and I debated the other night about Chelsea, and we said if you're choosing between Arsenal, City, and Chelsea to win the league, you're probably choosing Chelsea because they're the lesser of the three evils. Man, I just want Chelsea to fail that much more, Tom. I really do. They've spent over £500 million.
I think that's what clubs had towards us over maybe the last decade, and they got their wish.
Well, the thing is, United were hated because they were successful. Chelsea are languishing in the bottom half of the league and spending £500 million. It's absolutely baffling. And you know what's going to be so interesting? I still reckon they'll absolutely fail. I really do. I think
my hunch says it won't work.
I don't think it will work either. I think they're taking a massive gamble. I've seen mixed commentary, mixed opinions. You know what? You can't buy that many players that quickly. Firstly, the squad at the moment, if you're a starting 11 player, you'd just be walking on eggshells because you're like, there are two good quality players who can take my spot. They're not performing, so there's no trust in what they're doing. And the other thing, look at Nottingham Forest. I know it's a very extreme example, someone toward the bottom of the league, but you know what? There's a lot of correlation because Chelsea are closer to the bottom of the league than the top of the league. Yes. But all jokes aside, look at how many players Nottingham Forest signed, and look how long it's taken them to show anything close to a football team. You can't integrate 10 new players in a season. It's impossible.
I think the way Forest went about that business. Now, look, ultimately, in terms of Premier League coming up, that they have different desires, different needs, different financials, and obviously their own unique situation. The way they behaved in the transfer window in regards to the amount of players they brought in. Look, I wanted Nottingham Forest to come back up in regards to a big name in the Premiership. I do like that over some of the other clubs. You think, do they offer anything? I think Nottingham Forest definitely do. In my opinion, they deserve to go down. I think they went about the business completely the wrong way. If they go down in terms of the money they spent, I think that's on them. And look, that's not a shit on Nottingham Forest. I do respect the club, but yeah. Who knows?
I'd like to see Dean Henderson get relegated. He's the most unlikable United player I can think of.
He's the goalkeeper anymore. They just signed Keylor Navas.
Yeah, they did. That's amazing.
So I don't know what's happening there.
First choice.
I don't know if Manchester United have had a say in that in regards to what our situation was with Nottingham Forest and Dean Henderson's game time, because a lot of loan contracts, especially from a big club to a smaller club, will stipulate that they need to play when fit and available. So I'm just thinking, I'm not sure if that was in Dean Henderson's deal with Nottingham Forest, that he's going to be the first choice goalkeeper. Suddenly they bring in a Champions League goalkeeper. What that does to Man United's agreement with Forest will be very interesting to see. But question before we do move on, Larry. Martial did score. Christmas tree?
It's down.
It's down. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tony Martial.
I packed it up yesterday. I promised I would too. No, he scored. I did put the tree down.
What are the other fixtures in terms of, the match for Manchester United is a Saturday night, Sunday morning, 2:30. So it's a tricky one, but it is a Sunday morning, so you can sort of have your sleep in a little bit later. But before that, on the Saturday night, the primetime kickoff at 11:30 is Everton Arsenal. I had a chat with Rob last night from It's a Football Thing, in regards to Arsenal, Everton, two very different stories at two ends of the table. But ultimately, Everton now, in terms of, I'm going to be watching this. I'm going to pull an all-nighter tomorrow, 11:30 through to what time United are going to finish. United are going to finish 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. That Everton-Arsenal match intrigues me so much because I think Arsenal will go and win 4 or 5-0. I think they're that much better. I think Everton are that bad. But ultimately, Everton will have a new manager bounce. They have Sean Dyche in there. The fans will be up for it. But if Arsenal get their way and Arsenal go and win this game comfortably and Everton don't show the fight that they need, this Everton crowd will turn, and they will turn in a very toxic manner.
Yeah, it's Sean Dyche, such an interesting choice for a manager. I like it. I like it though, Tom. I do like it. I think if you're going to stay up, you need a manager who's done it before, and you need a manager with a bit of bite. I thought the Frank Lampard appointment was baffling at the time. So I got to say, I think with Sean Dyche, I think they might just get over the line, I think I could see Everton surviving another Premier League season. But let me ask you this. Where do Everton go from here? Because we thought last season was just a blip. That clearly that squad is rotten, and there's a lot of players who you thought were Premier League caliber, clearly no longer. They have local players forcing their way to Newcastle. It's just they're a rabble of a club. So where do Everton go from here? Because in terms of the Premier League, they're a mainstay. That there is. When was the last time Everton were relegated? It's been a hell of a long time.
No, they're one of the clubs who haven't been. Even before the football league, even before the Premier League, they're one of those things that, and look, we will laugh at. I think it'll almost be one of those ones like Italy at the World Cup. We sort of laugh when they don't qualify. Then the World Cup comes around, you think, oh, they should be a part of it. So I think we'll all laugh when Everton go down. And when the Premier League starts back up in a year, you think, oh, hang on, they really should be a part of it. But look, a lot of Everton fans have the same thoughts in regards to their owners as Man United do their Glazers. So you talk about where do they go from here. I think until they get new owners, look, Manchester United up for sale, Liverpool up for sale. Everton, I think the owners are not sure what they're obviously on the verge of, well, it seems like the last 5 years they've been on the verge of building a new stadium. I know they had the land for it. I'm not sure the process with that. But Everton are an absolute mess. And look, obviously a very proud club, Everton, but they are in a very, very precarious position. And ultimately, if they have Jordan Pickford between the sticks, that is on them. I'm going to show them no sympathy at all. But the big game in regards to Manchester United, I'll bring up the table, or not bring up the table on screen. I'll just have a look at the table. Manchester City against Spurs. This match influences us, above us and below us. So talk to me in regards to your feeling towards that one. Because ultimately, Manchester City, we talk about them, very good recruitment, in my opinion. I'm not sure what the logistic or the personal sort of thing is behind the scenes with João Cancelo. Getting rid of him in the middle of the season, in my opinion, that significantly weakens Manchester City. Now, maybe behind the scenes is a bad egg and it's a good move by Pep Guardiola. I'm not sure. But from what the face of it, I think Manchester City are in a bit of a tricky spot here. But talk to me.
Hell of a footballer. Looking at the ladder, I don't mean to sound arrogant, but if Tottenham lose and United win this weekend, I think you can pretty much guarantee top four. The gap beyond that is pretty big. It's a massive gap already. I mean, Brighton, they're on 31 points. United are on 39.
Would have to win both our games against Leeds, especially that makeup game. Or one of them.
Yeah,
define which one's the makeup, but you'd have to win our next two games.
Because I think if United can do that this time in a week, I'm telling you, I think you can almost say top four secured. And then maybe what we were alluding to before, maybe the Premier League is the priority, but maybe you can cast an eye to another trophy or two. And what a season that would be for United. Top four and 2 trophies? Unheard of. And what an achievement that would be for Erik ten Hag. It's really interesting, Tom. We always debate, well, so far this season, we've debated United's squad depth, but look at the clubs around us. Are there many clubs with better depth than United?
I think everyone's having the same debate. Arsenal, to be fair, having the same debate as us, and they're flying high.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Can I ask you this question on the Premier League in general? So we've obviously seen Manchester City and Liverpool in recent years surpass 100 points. And those clubs brag about that achievement. Can I put a counter argument forward? I would argue because they're accruing so many points, it actually shows how uncompetitive the Premier League is.
There's always an argument. Always an argument in whatever sport, football, rugby league, basketball, whatever sport. If you get a lot of points, a lot of people say that it's the most competitive, that's the highest quality. Or the other argument is you only get so many points because everyone else is poor. Then if you get a low amount of points, you think, oh, that's because it's low quality. Or if you get a low amount of points, the other argument could be it's because it's so competitive. 20th can beat first. So I don't know what to make of a points total. If that means the league is good or poor, I'm not sure. I've had that debate in my head for 10 years.
I'm going to try and sway your opinion here and get your comments in too. Let us know where you sit on this side of the debate. So let me make a case to you. When United won the treble in 99-2000 season, they actually...
Before that, 98-99.
98-99, sorry. They finished with 79 points to win the league. 79 points, right? So what I actually think it is, if you look at it now, so when people talk about the Premier League, what's the first two words that come out of everyone's mouth? Big six, top six, yeah? Tottenham, Chelsea, United, City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. You could potentially start to throw Newcastle in there. When you look at these sides, the reason they say that, these sides hoard the top players. And what was happening before is, I think that the bottom sides and even the mid-table sides, there was a more even spread of really good players, and then you had 2 or 3 teams competing at the top. Top 4 was so exchangeable in the 90s and 2000s. Now, City are a mainstay, Liverpool are a mainstay, and then United have been in and out, and Chelsea have been in and out. But Chelsea have been the most successful Premier League club of the last decade when you actually can count in Champions League trophies. So it's really interesting. I wonder, and again, I ask you the question, have the top 6 hoarded the top talent? And what we're actually seeing is, because these 6 are so competitive, they're taking all the points, and then the gap between the top and the bottom is actually getting bigger. I mean, look at the Premier League table. Look at Brighton to United right now. It's massive.
I think in points you can make that argument in regards to and maybe that is ultimately at the end of the day, it's a results-based business, and you can look at points to sort of clarify an argument. But ultimately, I look in regards to the quality. Is it a better quality league, or was it better back in the day in the 90s? But ultimately, I look at the bottom of the table and a team like Everton or a team like Nottingham Forest, and if we go in for a play of one of those players in regards to what type of quality they have, we could be buying one of those players for 60, 70 million pound. And I'm just thinking, ultimately, that shows that the quality is there. Now, ultimately, the consistency in quality sort of separates the top from the bottom, and sort of 5th and 6th to 7th and 8th, obviously. But ultimately, the quality, in my opinion, has improved. You look at boxing now. You can't touch the name in regards to any argument, but Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time, and I share that opinion in regards to everything around Muhammad Ali, 100%, of course. And you can't throw anyone in his sort of category when you're sort of comparing people. I fully accept that, respect that, and understand that. But ultimately, boxing has moved on. Okay, boxers have got faster, they've got stronger, they've got more tactical, they have the knowledge of what has happened before and sort of evolved as boxers. So ultimately, you put the best heavyweight in the world at the moment, let's say Tyson Fury, against Muhammad Ali. Okay, Muhammad Ali is the greatest of all time, but who wins? Okay, Tyson Fury. He's bigger, faster, stronger in regards to got the knowledge and evolved as boxing has sort of evolved itself. So ultimately, I do look at that in regards to my favourite time of football was that 90s period, early 2000s. But ultimately, now I look at the bottom half of the table, and the quality there is simply on a different level to what it was 20 years ago at the bottom of the table. So the quality will always improve. Our perception and view of it is ultimately, I think, skewed in regards to the way we sort of grow up and sort of the way we've grown up and sort of view football.
Call me biased. Look, I take the point, but I think individual sports are a little bit different. I think, look, obviously the players are better. They're better athletes now than they've ever been. But I still think that there absolutely is something in those top clubs hoarding the talent. I mean, United were signing the likes of Michael Carrick and Dimitar Berbatov in the late noughties period. Good luck doing that now. We might get Harry Kane, but after years and years and Tottenham almost being forced into that situation, we can't walk into Tottenham now and demand their best player with 4 years left on their contract. Just it doesn't happen because they've got money too.
Has football changed, like in regards to sport, in regards to club sort of thing, and the actual product on the pitch, or has it simply come down to the business side of things and like the TV money in regards to that has what has brought up the bottom end of the table?
I think there's a little bit of both. Obviously,
because now you look at stories. Sorry to interrupt you there, but you look at stories. Yeah. You don't have a title race now. You have a title race. You have a top 4 race. You have a Europa League race. You have a relegation battle. The stories, no matter 20 years ago, teams were on the beach in January because they had nothing to play for. They were safe or they weren't going to win the title, so players were on the beach. But ultimately now, until the last game of the season, 19 teams have something to play for.
There is something to play for, and I guess that narrative won't change. Now, whether you have 20 top performing teams all playing or you've got the Farmers League like Ligue 1 is, they're having the same debate. Top 4, Europa League, relegation. No one watches Ligue 1. It's not a good quality league. They're watching for PSG. They're watching Mbappe score 5 goals against players that I probably played up against growing up. But the reality is no one's watching Ligue 1. All eyes are on the Premier League. So it is the premier competition. But we've got, if you put all the top clubs in the world, you're going to get 5 or 6 from the Premier League. And that's what people enjoy about the Premier League. But I just think the gap between the top sides and the bottom sides is so big. Stephen made the comment here. The gap between the bottom. It might have been the comment before that. Oh, no, it was this comment. Sorry. Yes, Steve. He's saying, like, the bottom, it's tight. But it's tight because they're all garbage. And then the top, it's tight because they're all elite. And then you've just kind of got fodder in between.
But don't you see a situation where, look, and Manchester United have had a problem with whoever's bottom of the table for 20 years? Even in the treble-winning season, I remember going away to Hillsborough, Sheffield Wednesday, beat Manchester United, Schmeichel throwing in his own goal. But ultimately, now let's say Everton against Arsenal. Yes, Arsenal just said here, Arsenal are going to win 4-0. But ultimately, you can see a very real situation where Everton turn it on and Everton beat Arsenal. Now, that's 20. I don't know where Everton are. I think they're close to bottom, if not bottom. But ultimately, you can see a situation where 20th beats number 1. In the other leagues, would you see that in Germany? No, you say Bayern Munich are going to win that 10 times out of 10. PSG are going to win that 10 times out of 10. But in the Premier League, there are very real scenarios where you can see. Now, ultimately, yes, 9 times out of 10, the better team will win. But it's not going to shock. It will shock, but not as much as other leagues.
Side. Was it under Rangnick, maybe? Or was it the season before even? United lost to someone coming 20th very recently.
I feel we did that even under Sir Alex Ferguson. I feel we always just had a loss in us. So whoever was bottom, it was always our bogey team.
You know what game? You mentioned that 3-2 Wolves, I think.
Nah, you think in New Year's?
Yeah, Boxing Day.
That game had so many. No, it wasn't Boxing Day because I remember I was at my wife's house before we got married at her house, and you could see the Sydney fireworks from her kitchen window.
It was Watford. Was it Watford? Someone.
I'm going to give you this story anyway because I'm on one here. In regards to Blackburn, it was New Year's Sydney time. It was 11:30 kickoff. So we had this earlier this season. In regards to in Sydney, the kickoff goes over New Year's. In regards to fireworks, happen half hour into the game. That Blackburn game back then in the 11-12 season when we lost the league to Manchester City on goal difference. So when City won the league on that New Year's Day, Man United played Blackburn at Old Trafford, and the impact that game had was crazy because we lost the season on goal difference. I think Blackburn were bottom at the time, so we were in a title race. We played Blackburn. We lost 3-2 at Old Trafford. Can you name our starting midfield, our midfield pairing?
Hold on. Give me a moment.
It was a few weeks before Paul Scholes came out of retirement.
I know. I remember.
And there was Paul Pogba coming through.
It was one of the Silva brothers.
It was Raphael, and who was his midfield partner?
Was it Ji-sung Park?
Raphael and Park. And I'm just thinking that the butterfly effect, if you play Paul Pogba in that game instead of Raphael. No, we lost 3-2. I'm no bigger fan of Raphael than me.
He bench that game, didn't he, Pogba?
I think he did. But ultimately, then Paul Scholes comes out of retirement a couple of days later. You just think, if Paul Pogba plays that game, for everything, if Paul Pogba plays that game, do we have a better chance of getting 1 point and going on to win the title? Does that affect Paul Pogba's Manchester United career if he stays and Paul Scholes doesn't come out of retirement? I'm just thinking Manchester City, if they don't win that title, where are they 10 years later? I'm just thinking ultimately that game back there against Blackburn at Old Trafford, top against 20th, Fergie's team selection changed the fate of Premier League football.
I love Fergie, but he got that one wrong. That was a wild midfield to play when you got a young kid sitting on the bench, as talented as Paul Pogba is. There was a report today that apparently Juventus want to try and ship him out, which is so interesting. Can I say, Paul Pogba, is there a more... I mean, obviously, the saddest footballing career story, I think, has to be Adriano. That guy had everything, and he just really fell off the cliff. Seriously, potential to be one of the best, Adriano, and it just went really sad for him. But
a sad story with him. I urge everyone to go and look into, obviously, very troubled sort of upbringing and sort of the way he has fallen off, unfortunately. I work with a Brazilian at work, and we always talk about Adriano, and he's Brazilian, and he sort of comes from a similar area. And it's a very sad story with Adriano.
It is a sad story. But Pogba, while obviously not on the same level, is a sad story too. Because if I look at everything, the potential of him as an 18-year-old, the 90 million transfer fee to come back to Manchester United, the hope that we had. I remember his first interview. He wanted to win the Ballon d'Or, and he wanted to win the Premier League, and he wanted to win the Champions League. He achieved none of that. He was injury ravaged. His legacy at Manchester United is going to be his stare down with Mourinho in a training video. It's honestly that's his legacy at United. It's controversy, it's ego, it's Mino Raiola. God rest his soul. But
I think I was having a discussion with Sully, hopefully still in the live chat, in regards to Paul Pogba. We'll discuss SABITZER coming in for Christian Eriksen. Okay, nice little swap. Okay, we could see that. That's good. We can focus on the football. Nice, easy transition for Erik ten Hag. That's nice. Okay, one player comes in, one player goes out. You cast back in the mind what player was sort of dominating the headlines in that position over the last couple of years, and it's Paul Pogba. Now, look, we both like Paul Pogba as a player at Manchester United, but ultimately it did come to a time where it was untenable and he had to move on. But there was always a circus around Paul Pogba. Now, Christian Eriksen comes in, does a job, gets injured. SABITZER comes in, looks like he's not going to cause any waves. He'll be sort of showcasing himself all over social media. It'll just be about the football, and it is good. And I think that's not to really criticise Paul Pogba too much, but I think in terms of praising Erik ten Hag and the personality he's bringing in for what he needs. Now, before we wrap up, because we're closing in on an hour, I just want to bring this point up a little bit earlier. Arman, who's been in the comments all night, which we do appreciate, mate. I just want to bring up this point you did make a little bit earlier with a photo of Paul Pogba, to be fair. Who would you like as our new owners? Just in regards to this, there's no any developments in regards to the ownership debate. We know that behind the scenes, it does look like bids or sort of interest in bids are going in towards the Glazers, and they're going to obviously sort of hand over the finances, you'd assume, to the people who are interested. But ultimately, just your hunch now, we had hunches earlier in regards to what's going to happen with Mason Greenwood, etc. Just in terms of the ownership picture, just your feeling at the moment in terms of, as the question there from our man says, who do you think the new owners will be? Do you think it's American? Do you think it's Middle Eastern? Do you think it's Jim Ratcliffe? Your thoughts currently?
Something in my heart is telling me it's going to be Jim Ratcliffe. That's just my hunch. Because I think that's one that the fans would absolutely get behind. And I think Jim Ratcliffe... Look, I understand the side where people say, it's still a business investment. And it is. If you look at what Chelsea are doing right now, make no mistake, this was a group investment and they are absolutely going to be looking for a return. I think just looking at Jim Ratcliffe, where he is in his life, this guy's in his 70s. Money is not really... I can't imagine money is the overlying factor for him. I would imagine the overriding factor would actually be legacy. If you can be again, I bring it back to United have been so focused as the commercial club. And if you think of legacy, I bring it back to United have been so social media focused, Tom. How many tweets does Title 21 get? How many retweets? How many likes? How many?
Success changes everything. It changes everything. Winning changes everything.
But be the manager, be the owner that delivers that. That's a legacy for Jim Ratcliffe. You know what I mean? In terms of his legacy, he's built $1 billion corporation. I mean, his legacy is cemented. But
does this change your opinion on Jim Ratcliffe? Now, different clubs, different motives, different finances. Understand that, but he does own Nice, and Nice haven't really progressed the way. Now, I'm not sure. Maybe they're sort of helping in terms of what he bought them for in regards to his sort of business model. Maybe he sees them as a success, but on the football pitch, they're not. So I'm just thinking, does that influence your decision, or are we just looking at sort of financials, or can we look to Nice as evidence?
It doesn't, and the reason I say that is you don't need to. Okay, well, I guess it depends if you're talking about the stadium, but purely on transfers, you don't need to invest in Manchester United. You just have to let the club spend the money it makes. And if you do that, the transfer business looks after itself. And then if you're just spending capital in terms of the stadium, I think that's possible. Let me put this to you, though. I don't know if Jim Ratcliffe does it on his own. I think it's a consortium, even with Jim Ratcliffe. And call me crazy, Tom, I would not be surprised if David Beckham is part of that. I would not be surprised at all.
Look, yes, in regards to a face, it's a different category of money. If Jim Ratcliffe is asking David Beckham to get involved, he might as well ask me. It's a different kind of money. David Beckham doesn't have that kind of money in regards to what it would take. He would be a public figure. He'd be a face.
Yeah, he would be a face, but I think...
But no, David Beckham couldn't put money into... That's simply a different level. We're talking billions. We're talking billions.
I think you're underestimating how much David Beckham has. this guy is a brand, man. Like, if you think of what Ronaldo is right now, David Beckham was Ronaldo before Ronaldo was Ronaldo.
Yeah, but we're talking millions or maybe hundreds of millions. We're talking about owners in the Middle East who are worth billions, trillions. Like, it's a different level of money. But I understand, and right. I think ex-players will be involved in a very smart move by whether that be Jim Ratcliffe, the Middle East, or American owners. I think they will to get over the line in regards to public perception.
One you can see happening.
Sorry?
And Middle East, absolutely one you could see. The Glazers have had links with Saudi Arabia for a long time. And look, I think that would obviously be private ownership because in terms of the sovereign state, they already have a stake in Newcastle, so that won't happen. I think it could be the Middle East. It absolutely could be the Middle East. If you're a betting man, I mean, like, again, my heart says Ratcliffe, but if you're a betting man, I think it's one of Middle Eastern investment or American consortium. I would think it's one of that because I don't see where anyone else has the funds to really cough it up.
Ultimately, I think we're forgetting one sort of party in this new ownership. The Glazers. The Glazers are going to sell to who gives them the most money, regardless of someone's motive, whether it's Ratcliffe has a better motive or the Middle Easters have the best motive for Manchester United.
Dubai's a great shout. Just
ultimately, it comes down to who the Glazers. They'll be playing Manchester derbies over there, no doubt. It'll be a replacement of the Super League.
50-degree.
But ultimately, though, wouldn't you love in terms of how critical would be? What would you do? Okay, we'll wrap up. We've been going over an hour, so I do appreciate everyone stayed with us, but apologies if we are boring you, but I don't think this topic will be boring, especially for Australians. We would be so critical if they ever took, and I think unfortunately this will happen at some stage. Fingers crossed, not in my lifetime, but it will. Moving Premier League games overseas.
It's 100% going to happen.
Okay, it will happen. Ultimately, we would be so critical, and rightly so. Of course, we would be critical and we wouldn't support it, but ultimately, they bring Manchester United versus Liverpool or Manchester United versus anyone, Manchester United versus Everton to Sydney. We're first in line for tickets. So I'm just thinking, ultimately, what do you feel in regards to that at the moment? In regards to ultimately, we're not a fan of it, but we, as the customer, which I don't like to refer to us as, but we would lap it up.
Manchester United are the club they are because of the global fan base. Now, I know the locals, a lot of the locals who I've had the pleasure of meeting and I love, are very passionate about this is our club, and they've been really vocal about the club not showing enough respect to the local Mancunians. And absolutely, I think that they're very valid in that point. But Manchester United does not become the global phenomenon that it is without the global fan base. It wouldn't happen. And a lot of the successes that United have had, particularly in more recent times, is because of that global fan base. So with that being said, sometimes you got to feed. What's the saying? You got to feed eat from the hand that feeds you. We are part of the hand that feeds Manchester United's mouth, and for that reason, if that does eventually happen, then I say, you know what? Yes, while it's a bit frustrating, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Oh, look, we're going to be having many debates in regards to the ownership and everything. Just last question here, Larry, to wrap up, because we've been going an hour. Chris here, let's say new owners come in, rebuild the stadium. Okay, Old Trafford gets knocked down, we're going to build a new stadium. They do a world tour. Obviously, not doing a world tour because the games do have to be in the Premier League, but ultimately, we saw we saw Tottenham go to Wembley. We saw, what was another club who did something? I forget. Or Chelsea were planning to go to Wembley if they were building a new stadium. But let's say Manchester knocked down Old Trafford and we're 3 years away from home. What happens?
Oh, imagine them playing games at Ellen Road.
No, it wouldn't be Ellen Road. I'm just thinking, what would they?
It wouldn't be Ellen Road. It wouldn't be the Etihad.
Would you think it would have to be Wembley? Do you think in terms of
no, you would still feel it's London? You can't.
Of course, I agree with that. I don't know what they'll do. Maybe do you help Manchester City out and get them a few extra tickets sold every week?
I mean, Leeds are close, but I mean, obviously, Leeds and United just won't happen.
Oh no, that can't happen. I'm thinking maybe Etihad. Obviously, it's government owned in regards to. Obviously, we refer to it as a council house. I think it's the only potential option.
Is there owned by the government?
Well, it was the old Commonwealth Stadium. I'm not sure what the current state is. That's the council house.
Does Manchester City not own the Etihad?
Well, they didn't. I'm not sure what the current situation, but when they moved from Main Road, they got the Commonwealth Stadium.
You know what, George, that actually might not be the stupidest thing I've read.
You'd probably be right, yeah.
He's got a point. I think it's possible. What's the capacity of the cricket ground?
I'm not sure, but
I'm going to check this. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be honest.
You'd You'd have to reschedule the Ashes every couple of years if they have a game there.
Who on earth watches cricket? Is there a more boring sport on the earth on the earth of the planet? Is there a more boring sport on the planet, Tom, than cricket?
At this point here, Arsenal fluff, and he's coming in from a bit of a banterous aspect, so I do appreciate that. George is there, but Arsenal, I understand Arsenal for life. Good to see him, Arsenal fan. Fair play this season, doing very well. And you do have a bit of a banter side of this in regards to have more fans in London. Okay, fair play. Here we are on the other side of the world. But ultimately, there is obviously not truth to it in regards to that. But numbers-wise, Manchester United could fill. I'm not saying go to Wembley. It's the last thing I'd want to see. But they could do it. It could work in regards to if you couldn't get a place around Manchester.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they split the games. Indians watch cricket. I know, but other than India, I don't know of any other countries where cricket's the national sport. I just can't watch it. There's a reason why every time you turn on the cricket, there's a bloke drinking piss. It's because you got to be tanked to enjoy it. It's not that. It's not that. I know we have a few cricket aficionados, so fair play to them in the chat. But it's not the people in the crowd. It's not that. It's when they start filming seagulls. That's when I start to think, oh God, the game's not going anywhere here. When they start to focus on a seagull and start talking about it, that's where I think, oh, it's a bit of a long day now. But look, speaking of a long day, we have been going over an hour, so I do appreciate everyone in the live chat. Apologies again. 26,000, so I think that's possible, but they'd need to. United.
You could rearrange. You could rearrange the seating. I'm sure you could put in new stands in regards to.
Yeah, but you're not getting anything. You're not getting close to 74,000, are you?
Oh yeah, no.
United
definitely
would be taking a massive loss over that time.
Oh no! And look, that's a debate for when the new owners come in and
you know what they could do. You know what they could do? They could move it to Wembley. They could say Wembley's our home ground, but then I would look to, if I was Manchester United, put in my business cap on, I'd be looking to do a deal with a train line to offer season ticket holders free transport. I think that's how you can potentially get around it.
Yeah, no, look, definitely, and there are many variables which we'll definitely have to look at. But look, they are debates. They're exciting debates to be had in the future when the Glazers do finally sell up, and we have new owners. And George, here remind us, congratulations on the 1.5 subscribers. Do appreciate that. Not just me and Larry, but everyone in the podcast do appreciate everyone's constant interaction. Again, apologies today in regards to interaction with everyone. There's a highly emotive subject at the start in regards to Mason Greenwood, and then obviously a bit of a football chat there. So apologies if I didn't get to your comments, but do appreciate everyone's interaction. For the most part, I think it very well sort of was kept respectful, which was very, very much appreciated by Larry and I. But about 24 hours, we're going to sort of get another beer on the couch for me and tune in for a night of Premier League football, Larry. Everton against Arsenal, 11:30 Sydney time, and then 2:30 Manchester United versus Crystal Palace. And as I said, it's been a while since we had a Premier League game. Arsenal was the last match. So pleasure chatting to you on a Friday night, mate.
Pleasure, mate. And I never thought I'd say this, but I hope Arsenal march on with the league. I don't want to see City win 3 in a row.
Just if they do lose a game, it opens the door. If we win against Palace, you think, oh, the jitters, we might be back in the title race.
I'm past it. I just don't. I don't foresee it. I want it to happen, but I can't see it, Tom.
I just need a good Arsenal fan TV video. I just need something to bring me back into Arsenal.
Oh man,
I've been too happy lately.
We started with Mason. Actually, I won't go there. I think you know what I'm going to go to. I won't do it. We'll discuss
actually the person. We'll discuss that off air. He has no leg to stand on. But until then, hopefully everyone has a good weekend, and we'll chat to you post match against Crystal Palace. Until then, have a good one. Cheers.
Cheers.